coming up in today's newscast. 2 Iranian nationals are indicted in the U.S. as spies for Iran. Young Jews from Uganda make history with the country's very first birthright trip. And do you love pomegranates? Well, after this story, I have a feeling you'll be buying a ton of them. The U.S. Justice Department has just released details of a shocking criminal indictment. 2 Iranian nationals have been arrested and charged with spying for the regime. According to evidence collected by the FBI, the 2 were tracking and monitoring Jewish and Israeli targets in cities throughout the United States, as well as members of key Iranian opposition groups. The suspects have been named as 38-year-old Ahmad Reza Mohammadi Dudstar, who holds both Iranian and American citizenship, and 59-year-old Majid Gorbani, an Iranian citizen and resident of California. The indictment accuses the men of traveling to the United States in the summer of 2017 and separately traveling to Chicago, California, and New York. During these trips, the suspects apparently conducted intense surveillance at local Chabad houses and Hillel centers. They may have even stalked Jewish and Israeli members of these communities for the purpose of infiltration and maybe even organized terror. FBI evidence has linked the men to sources in the Iranian government where the 2 regularly filtered their findings, including photographs, videos, and detailed reports. It's clear that they were tasked with penetrating any anti-Iranian groups, and these acts altogether fall under the category of acting as unregistered agents of a foreign country for the purposes of spying, and obviously they violate current sanctions placed on Iran. Needless to say, these are chilling developments to see unfolding on U.S. soil. The 2 will face an undoubtedly fierce criminal trial in the near future. For the past several decades, Israel has held some of the toughest criteria for civilians obtaining firearms than any other country in the world. Now, for a long time, to get a personal firearm in Israel, you basically had to prove that your day-to-day life depended on it, and then you had to renew that license regularly with training courses. Correlating with that relatively low rate of guns, there have been categorically low mass shootings of any kind in Israel. Now, correlation may, of course, not prove direct causation, but regardless, this has been the status quo in Israel until today. Israel's Public Security Minister Eldon has just issued a significant relax of gun application criteria, and now any veteran from the IDF infantry can be eligible for a firearm license, putting potentially hundreds of thousands of guns into Israeli citizens' hands. And here to discuss this major development is Major General in the Reserves and former National Security Advisor Uzi Dayan and Dr. Nachman Shai, a member of the Knesset with the Zionist Union. Thank you both so much for joining us. We have a lot to talk about. So first, obvious question. This comes from the Office of the Public Security. Does this help or hurt public security?
It's needed. The keyword is terrorism. There is a threat in Israel. Terrorism, and it's not North America that there is a terror event here and there. It's there are a lot. There are more than let's say 100 years. So people want to have a gun to protect themselves, and we're taking a risk here, of course. But it's not North America. It's very different here, and it's not every reservist or veteran of the Israeli, of the IDF. It's also
from the infantry.
It's not only infantry. It's a rifleman, a soldier, combatant soldiers who pass. It's called Mark 7.
Right.
And so they are skilled, and we can very much trust them. And it's needed. I can tell myself. I don't know about you, Nachman. I carry a gun in Israel. Why? Because I know how to deal with it, and I feel safer. And the point here is not to feel safer, of course. I agree.
Sure, it's to be
if
safer,
it's just
ideally.
To feel more secured, I won't give guns to the people. But to give to the Israeli people that you can trust them and give them guns, it may make more guns in the streets, it's true, but it's very efficient weapon against terrorism.
Sure. Well, Nachman, let me ask you: will it make things in Israel safer? Because we've seen in many countries that's very much a big question. If more guns on the streets really does decrease shootings or terror.
No, it will be just the opposite. I'm afraid it won't be safer. It will be less safe than it is now. And Israel is pretty safe. I didn't see, and I'm not familiar with any rise in terror in Israel for the past few weeks or months. There is a certain level of terror that we've been exposed to for quite a long time, and we are doing quite well. And I should praise the government for that, for keeping terror as low as possible. So there's no need for that. I don't know what is the motivation of Minister Erdogan. I have no idea. I haven't talked to him, so I just figure out it's maybe it's an election campaign, maybe it's. I've no idea. I'm just figuring out what will be the outcome. Many more Israelis will be carrying guns. Unlike Uzi, I'm not carrying a gun. But that's his personal decision, of course. It's an individual decision. In principle, more people will carry guns, more terror of internal terror, more incidents where people will be using their guns for no reason. And then there is a proof. I mean, we have proof in America where we know that too many people are eligible to carry. Actually, every American is eligible to carry a gun. The outcome is terrible. We don't need it. And by the way, just let's do something very simple. Go down the street and look around. In any given moment, you'll see people carrying guns, which means that we have enough. We have enough Israelis that have license to carry gun, either in the army, the police, or just civilians. So there is no reason whatsoever to add more guns to the Israeli streets.
Sure. No, I will say that when I walk around the streets of pretty much any major Israeli city, you know, if you go into a mall, a public place, the market, the shuk, there's guards with guns who have a license and a permit to do so.
Right.
But this raises an interesting question because, you know, national security, right? I mean, we talk about terror in Israel, and for sure there is terror. But unlike in the United States, terrorists, I think I can count on one hand how many shooting incidents there's been, especially non-related to Palestinian terror, in the state of Israel. So my question is, if we put more guns just categorically in the streets, are we going to see, instead of stabbing attacks, are we going to see shooting attacks happen? Because that's pretty rare in Israel. What do you think?
I don't think so. When you know knife, it's a weapon. Knives kill people, and don't make any comparison to the United States or to North America in general.
No, I'm saying that if we put more guns in the streets, just blanket, are we going to see guns get into the hands of people who commit crimes or terror?
Today there is about almost 4% of the Israelis who can get this license. It might now the new rules might bring it up to, I don't know, 8-10%.
Which so that's potentially tens of thousands of guns.
And we need, look, it's a risk management in a way. I mean, to give some guns to the people who actually carried it when they were in the army, in the IDF, and they also took it to their homes, etc. They know how to deal with it, and they are responsible. So I think that give these people the possibility, the option to carry a gun. It's calculated the risk, and not giving it to the people, it's uncalculated risk.
But why take the risk? Like Nachman points out that Israel is very safe right now. There is terror.
No, I said it's calculated risk because the risk of terrorism is higher. It's prevail than that risk, and you have to decide about it. I must say that it's only in the in the last days that this decision was made. And what I'm saying is, I don't know. It's never too late to do the right thing. There is a risk in it. I agree. But I think it's a calculated risk, and it's the right thing to do.
Right, and I guess you would say that it's not a good calculated risk.
I really, I'm trying to. I've been trying since yesterday when I heard for the first time, asking myself, well, why? Why do we need it? I would have agreed, and I recognize or I identify any rise in terror in Israel. I don't see it. And internal security is quite fine. What I'm scared is that when more people will carry guns, we'll end up with battles within Israeli streets. I mean, when people has a gun, they fight with each other anyhow. Traffic, standing in line, in the supermarket sometimes. But the easiest way will be to pull out their guns.
The two main risks is stealing. I mean, people.
That's another risk.
Weapon can be stolen, and another risk is accidents. I mean,
of course, there is a market of guns. I mean, in the Arab sector, we know that there is an influx of weapons, and the outcome we see almost every day. They are fighting with each other using firearms. So I feel like we better continue to do whatever we need. If there is a certain demand in a certain kibbutz, moshav, city, neighborhood, okay, let's take care of it.
Regionally based on
yes,
small
yes,
regional...
maybe in the agriculture, in the farms, people are isolated, they're working on their own, they need a gun. I mean, I can think about many situations, but in general, to see more people carrying guns in the street, my goodness.
Right. Well, for better or for worse, that's basically, I guess, what we're going to see happen in the near future, and we'll just have to keep our eye on it and see what happens. And I don't know if correlation proves causation, but it will definitely be
We will see the statistics if it comes.
We will see. Thank you both so much for joining us.
You're most welcome.
Well, we have new evidence just now related to the ongoing graft investigations into Prime Minister Netanyahu. Likud MK David Bitan, who is currently under investigation for bribery, was apparently recorded on tape repeating incriminating promises made to him by the Prime Minister. And according to sources, Bitan admitted that Netanyahu had planned to make him Public Security Minister with the clear goal of ending the police investigations into the PM's alleged wrongdoing.
Israeli media has quoted that recording in which Bitan says, quote, Netanyahu arranged with me that I would become public security minister. He is afraid of the media, but the appointment is agreed upon. These remarks were apparently made in a conversation with Bitan's friend Moshe Yosef, who has since flipped against him and testified against him in Bitan's ongoing criminal investigations. In addition to this, other recordings have also emerged between Bitan's friends and associates. Talking between themselves, they are allegedly caught on tape discussing the overall implications of this promotion to be, with the ultimate goal being the quick replacement of Police Chief Goni Al-Saich. Al-Saich currently oversees the 4 police probes that involve Netanyahu, 3 of which involve him as a suspect. In 2 of those cases, police have already recommended criminal charges be made against the Prime Minister for bribery and arranging illegal quid pro quo deals with the local newspaper for favorable news coverage. In all cases, Netanyahu has reaffirmed that he has done nothing wrong. Bitan's associates are quoted saying that they'd been asked to find a replacement who would be more convenient for Netanyahu. If these recordings of Bitan and his allies are true, and if these promises are even real, it could be tantamount to serious obstruction. Both Bitan and Netanyahu, however, have responded to these allegations, fiercely denying that any such arrangements were ever made. Bitan has accused the police of intentionally leaking untrue gossip that has nothing to do with the ongoing investigation.
Well, every year, hundreds, if not thousands, of young Jews visit Israel for the very first time in a free 10-day trip known, of course, as Birthright. And the idea behind that is that all Jews, no matter where they're from, should have a chance to see the Jewish homeland at least once in their lifetimes. Well, we are about to see a historic first for Birthright, the first ever group of Jewish youths from Uganda who are about to begin their tour as I speak these very words.
This group comes from the small but flourishing Abba Yudaya community that sprung up in eastern Uganda nearly 100 years ago. Now 2,000 members strong, the majority were officially converted to Judaism by American conservative rabbis in the 2000s. And needless to say, the first batch of nearly 40 youths are beyond excited to see the Holy Land in the flesh for the very first time, fulfilling that long-held promise of seeing their religion come alive. But for some, this trip does come with some baggage and exposes a deep rift between how the government of Israel defines Judaism and how Israel's own Jewish agency defines it. And the diagnosis is not simple. The Abba Yudaya's certified conversion to Judaism qualifies this entire community as eligible for Israel's own law of return as Jewish and therefore Israeli citizens. Despite this, Israel's chief rabbinate has refused to recognize them as Jewish, or indeed anyone not born Jewish by blood. Making the matter all the more complex is the fact that the Jewish agency in Israel is the state's single most significant agency responsible for identifying Jews abroad and overseeing their aliyah to Israel. The Jewish agency has unconditionally agreed that these Uganda Jews are indeed completely Jewish, but Israel's Interior Ministry has repeatedly blocked the Abba Yudaya's request for recognition. On an ironic side note, Taglit Birthright trips are partially funded by the State of Israel, meaning that the very country denying them as Jews is in fact paying their way to visit Israel as the Jewish homeland. Other assertions have long accused the government of specifically blocking this and other African communities for purely racial reasons. Many white Americans who have converted to Judaism or been adopted into a Jewish family, for example, have often been able to immigrate to Israel with relatively zero problems. For all these reasons and more, neither Birthright nor the State of Israel have offered much comment on this historic visit from Uganda's very first Taglit trip, but you can guarantee that politics aside, this group is going to have an amazing 10 days ahead of them, and hopefully this is the beginning of many more just like them.
The Abu Ghosh Vocal Music Festival is a very special event, a days-long celebration of classic music, much of it with Christian roots, performed in an Arab village outside of Jerusalem and performed by mostly Jewish musicians. Well, this year, a performance of Johann Sebastian Bach's St. Matthew Passion will undoubtedly be one of the centerpieces of this fest, and with me now is Yuval Ben Ozel, the man who will conduct the orchestra for Bach's St. Matthew Passion. Yuval, thank you for joining me.
Hello. It's not only orchestra, it's 4 soloists and a choir. So it's a big...
So it's huge.
Yeah,
it's huge.
Apparatus, yes.
Wow, and I know that it's going to take place in the church in Abu Ghosh, right? I mean, it's a very special way to experience Bach's piece.
You know, church music is meant to be played in a church,
Sure.
and then the acoustic is appropriate, and the whole atmosphere is appropriate, and the experience of the listener is great.
Sure, and also the acoustics of being in like a stone church is very, it's very unique, and you can imagine Bach like either keeping that in mind when he composed it and wrote it and stuff like that. Why? Now tell me a little bit about how the performance goes, because I know that there's an evangelist who performs with the orchestra, right? That's kind of like a chanting, like singing the not a prayer, but singing kind of like lyrics with the piece, right?
Yes. You know, it's one of the major masterpieces of the whole
Sure.
Western culture, and it's because it's a combination of Bach's great ability, he was a genius, and a great dramatic text, and choir and soloist, and all based on a text from the Saint Matthew
Right.
Passion from the New Testament, and it's just a really very unique combination.
Yeah. Well, Bach in Israel is, interesting because, a lot of anti-Semitism is in that history, and a lot of Israelis that I know, they won't listen to Bach in Israel because for them it brings up bad memories, probably in line with the music and with the sounds. Does that enter into your mind when you're composing or when you're selecting music to play or when you're playing this composition?
It's not really Bach. Most of the pieces of Bach, many of them are from the Bible, from Psalms, but this Saint Matthew Passion is some of it is anti-Semitic text, but it's not really anti-Semitic. It's just the story from the Evangelion gives the role of the bad people to the Jewish
Sure.
people who blame Jesus for things, and they choose to crucify him, or they ask the Romans to crucify him. So it has some elements, but but we treat it as a theater,
Sure.
as a piece of art,
And
we're
history,
not trying.
in a way,
And history,
yeah.
and we're not. I'm not trying to identify with the story, but to play a great piece,
Sure.
and put it in proportion.
The concert's in September. There's a lot to look forward to. Yuval, good luck. Break a leg. Thank you for joining us. An impressive and incredibly complicated Israeli study might have just solved one of the great mysteries in human history. How did the Bronze Age reach the Holy Land thousands of years ago? Well, after studying hundreds of ancient bones and skeletons, an Israeli team at Tel Aviv University has an answer. 6,500 years ago, settlers from Iran came to the Galilee, bringing the Chalcolithic age of mankind along with them.
Okay, so if this sounds like a less than groundbreaking discovery, let me stop you right there. This mystery of how the Bronze Age reached modern-day Israel is a puzzle as old as history itself. That missing gap of information actually accounts for roughly 3,000 years of ancient Middle East history all on its own. Needless to say, archaeologists, researchers, and historians have been puzzling over the clues for years, trying to figure out exactly how it happened. The Chalcolithic Age, better known as the Copper Age, which gave rise to the Bronze Age, was a crucial turning point in human history. Taking place between 3500 and 2300 BCE, this was the era right after the Stone Age, when humans began developing copper into its key technology. Now, life in this era revolved almost completely around the harnessing, smelting, and manipulation of copper into the technologies that would later perfect into bronze, and then finally into iron, the very backbone of human technological progress. But it's all got to start somewhere, and the further back you get, of course, the murkier things get. The Israeli team at Tel Aviv U spent years collecting bone samples from this era and unraveling their individual genomes. Finally, that evidence has revealed some surprising findings. The article has announced that, quote, ancient DNA from Chalcolithic Israel reveals the role of population mixture in culture transformation. 57% of this ancestry has been traced to local Levant Neolithic communities that were probably already there to begin with. Another 26% were traced to offspring from the nearby Anatolian Neolithic communities. But here is the kicker, guys. 17% were traced to relatives of Iran's Chalcolithic groups. In other words, the Bronze Era that exploded into human progress probably arrived on the backs of immigrants or even migrants from Iran. Now, this valuable data was extracted from the Peki'in cave in northern Israel back in 95, from one of the world's largest known burial sites ever traced to this time period. Some 600 individual human skeletons were recovered from that dig, evidence that has just rewritten one of the most mysterious chapters in human history.
Now, we all know that the pomegranate is tasty, nutritious, and contains endless seeds. Heck, it's even Israel's national fruit and a long-standing anchor of the Hebrew Bible. But as it turns out, the ruby red pomegranate is worth mentioning for another reason. An Israeli study has suggested that the fruit may drastically reduce the risk of fetal brain damage in pregnant women. And yeah, I think I can hear everyone out there buying a zillion pomegranates right about now. An Israeli team at Israel's Rambam Hospital, working alongside a team from Israel's Technion, stumbled across the potential superpowers of pomegranates by studying pregnant rats. Like in most mammals, rats, when they have pregnancy complications, this can lead to inflammation in a woman's womb. And this can spread to an infection and endanger the unborn baby, specifically in the fetus's still forming brain tissue. But here's where the team got kind of creative. They took a group of pregnant rats with inflammations of the womb, and they gave them loads and loads of pomegranate juice. The delicious treat significantly reduced that tissue inflammation, and the result was a batch of newborn baby rats with a drastically reduced rate of brain injury. Now, the data from lab rats does not always correlate one-to-one to humans, but sometimes it does set the vital groundwork for research that can. So on top of being, a major antioxidant, helping digestion, and being a really superb addition to just about any salad, the pomegranate might very well help protect your unborn baby's brain, meaning yes, all those tediously annoying, weird little seeds are very much well worth the squeeze. Well, right now, the 2018 Paralympic Games are unfolding in the city of Dublin, and these are literally the Olympic Games for anyone paraplegic, as the Games are actually organized by the Olympic Committee in tandem with the Summer and Winter Olympics. Well, Israel's Paralympic swim team has just snagged a whopping 12 medals, including 5 bronze, 4 silver, and 3 gold.
This year, 400 swimmers from 27 countries all over the world were represented in this year's World Paraswimming Alliance European Championships, the swimming component of this year's Paralympics. Young 17-year-old freestyle backstroke champ Ami Dadon took home 2 golds and 2 silvers. Mark Maylar snagged bronze medals in the 100-meter backstroke and breaststroke events, as well as a silver in the 400-meter free. Add that to 2 more bronzes in the men's 400-meter free and 150-meter medley, and that is a lot of medals. But lest we forget Inbal Pizarro's amazing performance in the 200-meter women's freestyle, which earned Israel its 3rd gold medal for the Games. The 31-year-old athlete also snagged bronze, which became a silver on a technicality in the 100-meter free. Throw in another bronze, the women's 400-meter free on top of that, and you've got one very successful Paralympic turnout, my friends. Congrats to all the swimmers. You guys make your country very proud.
Some wonderful news just now for the Israeli superstar known to the world as Wonder Woman. Gal Gadot has just been named among the top 10 highest paid actresses of 2018 by Forbes magazine, and this year she pulled in a whopping $10 million. And that's not too bad considering that the Wonder Woman sequel has not even come out yet.
This is Gadot's first time on Forbes' annual list of the 10 highest paid actresses of the year. And as if that weren't impressive enough, she's also the only one on this list who hasn't been there before, making this quite the feat. Now, she hasn't been on the silver screen that much this year yet, but dual endorsement gigs for Revlon and Reebok helped boost this year's annual paycheck to list-topping heights. At $10 million, Gadot is right behind megastars like Melissa McCarthy, Cate Blanchett, and Julia Roberts. But higher up on the list, you've got Jennifer Lawrence, Jennifer Aniston, and Angelina Jolie, who each made almost double Gadot's earnings. And if you're wondering who's number 1 on this year's list, well, that would be 4-time Golden Globe nominee Scarlett Johansson. With a combination of major Hollywood blockbusters, independent art house, and major commercial endorsements under her belt, Johansson raked in $40.5 million this year, before taxes, of course. Last year, Johansson discovered a long-lost family history of relatives who perished in the Holocaust on PBS's Finding Your Roots. Perhaps fittingly, Johansson will next be seen in Jojo Rabbit from director Taika Waititi, playing the mother of a child whose imaginary friend Rabbit helps him cope with the horrors of Nazi Germany. And true to the director's style, as seen in What We Do in the Shadows and Thor Ragnarok, the film is something of a bizarro comedic satire set in World War II. Maybe this time next year, Gadot will come out on top as number one, but hey, it's not about the money or the paycheck, of course. As long as our favorite Wonder Woman keeps picking meaningful roles with impact and inspiring people all over the world with art and storytelling, that is what really matters.
The Hebrew word of the day is brought to you by IDC Samru Ulpan, open to everyone.
Now for our Hebrew word of the day, the pomegranate might have a whole lot more medical benefits than anyone even realized. So today's word goes out to my favorite secret fruit shake ingredient, the limon, or the pomegranate. Yeah, okay, yes, I admit, the seeds of a limon, pomegranate, they're kind of weirdly textured and squishy, but make no mistake here, the limon is a delicious and nutritious snack, and you can add limon to just about anything. You know, some people put limon in their yogurt, some sprinkle it like this on their pasta. I've even seen people, once in a while, put limon on their pizza, and I've never tried that, but I hear that it's kind of awesome. All right, now let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight's looking clear and warm with a high of 88 or 31 degrees Celsius, and tomorrow's shaping up to be more of the same with sunny skies and little, if any, change in temperatures, same 88. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.66 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at ILTV.tv, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook at Israel English News, and of course on Twitter at ILTV News. I'm Brett Allen Smith. Thanks for watching.